Hi. In this presentation, I will show you how to do basic switch configuration and a basic router configuration. If you look at the setup I have here in Packet Tracer, it is the same as the ones that is shown in the chapter. So I'll start with a switch. Basically, you don't really need to do anything with the switch. If you just set it up and attach the cables, it will actually just work. But in this case, I would like to give the switch a name, and I also would like to set an IP address up on the switch. You can see over here that this network here is called 192.168.10.0/24, and the switch IP address should be 192.168.10.2. And this is the IP address I would like to configure here. First of all, I would like to go into configuration mode, config T, and now I would also like to start with giving the switch a name. So I use the command host name, and I call this S1 because this is switch number 1. Then I would like to give the IP address to the switch. When we have a switch, we don't give the IP address to the different ports because they are layer 2 ports. Instead, I give it to something called a switch virtual interface. And in this case, it is the same, or in all cases, it is the same as the different VLANs. So I go into interface VLAN 1, and VLAN 1 is the default gateway, the default VLAN. So this is where I place my IP address now. So I go to interface VLAN 1, I use the command IP address, and then 192.168.10.2. And the mask should be /24, which is 255.255.255.0. And I also need to do a no shutdown. So now I've set the IP address on the virtual interface, VLAN 1. I also want to set the default gateway, and the default gateway is set in configuration mode on a switch. So I use the command IP default gateway, and in this case it's 192.168.10.1, which is the IP address of my router interface that is connected to this switch. Like this. So this is basically all I need to do on the switch. So let's just exit and do a copy, run start to save the configuration. So now this is finished. So let's move on to the router. In this case here, I want to do the basic router configuration, setting up the name, the different passwords, and then I will configure the 3 interfaces, G00, G01, and S000 for the serial interface. So here, this is an empty router, I can see that. So let's go to enable mode and then to config mode. I start by changing the name with the host name command, and this is router 1. Then I want to set the passwords. I start by setting the password, so when I go from user mode to privileged mode, I will be prompted for a password. And this is the enable secret password, and this should be class. Then I would like to set the password for the console port. So when I plug in the cable and I connect through a terminal emulation program, I will also be prompted for the password. And to do so, I go into line con 0. This is console 0. We only have one, and this is called 0. And then I go to set the password with the password command. Oh, if I could spell it, and I call it Cisco. Not a good choice, but I do it. And then I enable the login with this password. So now I set the password on the console cable. then the last password I would like to set is on my virtual interfaces. Line VTY024 gives me 5 simultaneous virtual terminal connections, for instance, telnet connections. So here again, I set the password, if I could spell it, and I set it to the same, which is not very good either, but I do it anyway because I'm lazy. So this here, now I've set the password for my telnet sessions or SSH sessions. In this case, if I don't do anything, it will be telnet sessions. So now I set all the password, but only the enable secret password be encrypted, and I would like all my passwords to be encrypted in the configuration files. So I do a service password encryption command. This will encrypt all my passwords. So now all the passwords are set. Now I would like to configure the 3 different interfaces that I have on this router. So I start by going to interface G00, and I would like to set the IP address here. So I do the IP address command, and it is called 192.168.10.1, and the subnet mask 0. I know this because up here I can see that it's a .1. So 192.168.10.1 is the IP address of my G00 interface. And now I'd like to open it, so I do the no shutdown. So now this is done. Now I'd like to move on to the G01 interface, and it should be called 192.168.11.1. So now I just go into interface G01, and my IP address is, in this case, 192.168.11.1, and the subnet mask 255.255.255.0, and also a no shutdown here. So now I've configured, and you can see that they immediately turn green when I do a no shutdown. So now the last thing I need is to set up my serial interface. So I go to interface S0/0/0, and the IP address here is 209.165.225/30. So let's go to IP address .209.165.225.30. Sorry, 225. 224 is the network. 225 is the serial interface over here. And my subnet mask is 255.255.255.252 because it's a /30 address. And you can see there on this end of the serial cable here, it is a small clock, which means that this is the end where I need to set the clock rate. The clock rate is only something you need to set on the serial interfaces, and you do that with the command clock rate, and you just set, we can set to a question mark, and you can see the available clock rates here. Let's just set it to, I don't know, 64,000, which is 64K. It's a very slow connection. And I also would like to do a no shutdown here. Oh. So now this also turned green. So now I'm basically finished. To check my configuration, I will go back to privileged mode, and I can do a show IP route. Oh, to see now that it has a knowledge of all my directly connected networks. I haven't set up any kind of routing yet, so the only thing that they know is my directly connected networks. 192.168.10.0, 192.168.11.0, and 209.165.200, 224. This is the network, this is the interface address. I can also do a show run to see that what I have set up so far. My Ethernet connections, my serial connection. I can also see my passwords are set, but I cannot read them because I did the service password encryption. Yeah, and that's it. That's the basic switch configuration and router configuration. Thank you.